All right, I think I just want to give it one more second, but I think yes. So welcome everyone to this week's Snack and Chat. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're watching us live, thanks so much. Adopt for Life's weekly Facebook Live, where we explore topics that are top of mind for families formed by adoption, kinship, and customary care. My name is Chantal, Community Engagement Liaison with Adopt for Life. Our host, Catherine Connors, and today we're joined by Lorena Garvey from the Ontario Federation of the Indigenous Friendship Centres. For those of you that are watching live, feel free to put your comments or questions in the chat. I will be monitoring that. Just let us know that you're watching, and just a quick reminder, whether you're watching this live or on replay and you are putting in questions or comments in the chat, that this is a live stream on our public Facebook page. So you do want to be mindful of what information you're putting there. So no identifying information, because that will be available on the World Wide Web. So just keep that in mind. I just want to introduce our guest, Lorena. Lorena is Anishinaabe Kwe, born and raised in Windsor, Ontario. She's an experienced educator with a demonstrated history of working in the nonprofit industry, skilled in nonprofit organizations, youth development, facilitation, training, design and delivery, and proposal writing. Lorena specializes in the development and facilitation of trainings that are embedded in adult learning principles, trauma-informed approaches, and Indigenous ways of knowing and worldviews. Currently, she's in her final year of Masters of Education with a focus on urban Indigenous education at York University. A priority for Lorena is to ensure that a balance is met in all areas of her life, and believes that culture, language, family, and mentorship in a large part has helped her become who she is today. So Lorena, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, giving up your lunch hour to be with us today. We really appreciate it. I'm going to, well, I'll just pass it over to Catherine because I know there's already a lot of questions queued up, and we don't have too much time. So thanks.
We never get to all the questions, so it's all good. But thank you so much for coming and joining us. For those of you who are watching, as Chantal had said, feel free to ask questions. We don't know if we'll get to any or all of our questions today, but just know that this is an open forum to ask and learn about the Friendship Center, the Friendship Center movement, the amazing work that you know, Lorena and her team and that they're doing. And so if you have questions, post them. If we can't get to them, luckily enough, we have Lorena's contact. So, so we can always try and ask her afterwards as well, or connect with other friendship centers that might actually be in your community as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. I know the first question is a big one, so feel free to take your time in answering it. As we had said, we just never get to all of the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and ask it. I'm sorry, my computer just froze. Awesome. Okay. First question that we have for you. So the OFIFC was created in 1971. So this is the research that we did. But there was actually friendship centers that were operating before that. So even as early as like the 1950s or the 1960s. Could you tell us a little bit about why and how the Federation actually started?
So yeah, I guess I'll provide a little bit of like back history to it. So absolutely, there are friendship centers that started in the 1950s and 1960s. Often when we talk about friendship centers starting from the very beginning of the movement, it was very much started through local Indigenous community members who had oftentimes been enfranchised and forced to move to the city. And so when they were enfranchised, they weren't and had to move to the city, they weren't able to practice ceremonies, they weren't able to practice their language and have that opportunity to really practice being Indigenous and to be Indigenous. And so as things started to move through the 1940s to the 1950s, there was an amendment to the Indian Act that for the first time allowed Indigenous communities and Indigenous people to gather in groups of 3 or more. Because prior to 1951, we weren't able to. After 1951, suddenly now we were able to speak our language without being punished. We were able to practice our teachings and our ceremony, but it didn't always mean that going to a city and doing that was safe. It didn't mean that it was okay to do that. And because of the enfranchisement process that had happened for about 60, 70 years prior to this, there are many Indigenous people who lived in the cities and towns up to this point, and they had secretly gathered, and they had already started to form small clubs and to do it under like the blanket of what was happening in reality. So when 1951 happened, you're now able to do all these things, and it's okay. But just because it's okay doesn't mean it's safe. And so sometimes it still happened in hiding. It would happen in people's basements, in hiding in people's kitchen. I always remember a knowledge keeper sharing with us that you would know it was a traditional home and that place was a safe place to ask for ceremonies, because you would see in the kitchen 4 holes in each corner of the north, east, south, west, representing that these people in this home would at night or in secret would build themselves a sweat lodge inside their kitchen. And so these opportunities were often done in secret. But in 1951, it became a time that allowed us to gather more without getting in trouble. And so as this gathering process started to happen, Indigenous women really played a large role in getting this started and organizing the movement. And even still today, Indigenous women play a large role in leadership. And so the Friendship Center really started to gather in community basements and people's homes, things like that, and starting popping up in different places across Canada. So we really hear of our first 3, which is the Native Canadian Center of Toronto, the Indian and Métis Friendship Center in Winnipeg, and as well the Vancouver Friendship Center are kind of the first 3 that really started popping up. And after they started popping up more and more within Ontario, we have something called our Original 6. And our Original 6 in Ontario consists of the following friendship centers. It was Kenora, Red Lake, Thunder Bay, London, Toronto, and Parry Sound. And those make up our Original 6. And they also make up our founding board members. And they are the ones that form the Federation. And so one of the things that we'll always say at the OFIC or the Federation is that we work at the goodwill of friendship centers. Without the friendship centers, we do not exist. And so one of the things I always say is I have 1 supervisor and 29 bosses, because those friendship centers really give us our reason to do the work that we do. And so the OFIC, when it was formed in 1971, based off of that original board of the 6 friendship centers, really started to be founded in order to represent a collective interest of friendship centers, to advocate provincially regarding grassroots issues, regarding issues that's happening in urban centers. We often in policy and government talk about First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. But when we only focus on First Nations, Métis, Inuit, we often forget talking about urban Indigenous. And 85% of Indigenous people live in urban settings, whether that's a rural northern community or that's Toronto. That could look like Kenora or Ottawa, right? And that's what we mean by urban, is that it's places that aren't reserves, and it's those communities where services are needed. And so that's really the reason friendship centers were established and the OFIC was established, is to support the well-being of the friendship centers and support urban Indigenous communities.
I think that in everything that you've just said, I just realized how much I personally don't know about the history. So I just appreciate you sharing that knowledge with us. And I think for all of us watching, it just shows that we need to do a lot more research ourselves. And I attend friendship centers with my children. And I thought I knew the background, but it's clear to me that I need to do a better job. So thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so important for us to appreciate and respect the process of how you guys came to be, and to appreciate that this is an ongoing movement. So yes, I think things have come a long way, but I think that all of us have a duty to make sure that it continues to grow. So thank you.
Yeah, I too just learned so much in those last 10 minutes. Like, I went on your website, but I didn't, like, just listening to you speak was just so really insightful. So thank you. I learned a lot just in that 10 minutes right there.
I know. And we're done. No, I'm joking. And I think it's interesting to me because, you know, as I said, our family attends friendship centers, and we've learned some of the programs, and there's also a lot of collaboration. And so I don't even know if this is one of the questions, but I was just really personally thrilled to see the community collaboration. So like, we've attended events in Hamilton region because they have collaboration with local resources, but we've attended the Peel centers as well. So I think it's been fantastic in that they connect with each other, and that it isn't like silos that, you know, you can only attend one for the region, because it's such a collaborative experience. I would love to know, for those of you for those of us who may not know about friendship centers, what kind of services do they provide? And does it differ, or do you guys try and have the same type of supports or services and programs available among all of the centers? I know there's probably a ton, but if you can maybe just generally talk about some of the programs and services that are offered.
Yeah, no worries at all. Some friendship centers offer more programs than other friendship centers. But again, a lot of the needs of the community is how the community determines the programs. So also larger urban centers might have more programming than some smaller ones, and some that have, so you mentioned Hamilton, but in that area there's BRISC, which is the Brantford Indigenous Circle. There's Hamilton Regional Indian Center, there's Fort Erie Native Friendship Center, and there's Niagara. And so a lot of time they'll work together to address issues, as you mentioned, and connect with each other and to support the community. But some of the programming, the programming that friendship centers deliver vary across the life cycle. And so we provide programming or the friendship centers provide programming from prenatal, before you even come to this earth, till that time where we're ready to move on. And even then, a lot of times programs like Cultural Resource Coordinator may support in providing those ceremonies while that person's passing on. And so we talk about providing healing and wellness programs, justice programs, youth programs, healing and wellness, homelessness, programming that support women who are in need of housing, and education to employment programs, and really trying to ensure that we meet the needs that the community is addressing or saying is needed. Sometimes the Friendship Center is the only urban Indigenous community organization, and so they may have more programs than others. Some friendship centers are fairly new, so only have a few small, might only start out with 2 or 3, and we have some friendship centers that have 30 programs. And so really based on what the issues are in the community, what the community is saying is the need, it is how we really discuss and talk about what programs should be in what region and what community. So an example, Sudbury has a lot of our justice programs. They have lifelong care, they have youth programs, so Wathanaben and Aguego, which really works with we call it at-risk youth, but it's really to support young people to move away from being at risk, because many people will say just being Indigenous is being at risk of whether it's health issues or justice or whatever it is. And so those two programs, which might be really beneficial to the families that are watching this, is they provide programming around supporting education, supporting cultural needs, supporting for the 13 to 17-year-old range justice programming. They do programming that raises awareness about violence against Indigenous women and girls. And so really talking about healthy relationships. We have a couple new programs we've just started with that is really about supporting our 2S community, because really trying to welcome them back into the community, because for a long time they haven't. And so what a lot of the work that OFISC does is listening to the friendship centers, and the friendship centers listen to the community. And from that, we advocate for programming and services and supports for friendship centers, and they'll run them very differently. So how the Kijé Anishinaabe program, which is the I'm a Kind Man program, how that functions in Niagara will look slightly different than how it runs in Kenora or how it runs in Red Lake. How the justice program works in Thunder Bay will look slightly different than it does in Ottawa. And that might just be based on the partnerships and the services that they have, and the capacity of how many clients and direct service users that are there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that even when we were first getting connected, we were called, because I'm in Peel region, and so we had called the Peel Friendship Center, and they listed all of the programs, and I was like, what? Whoa. And the incredible thing for me, and this is actually, I believe, one of the questions is that it's open to all family members. So we are an intercultural family. So we all come from different cultures and backgrounds, but you know, my older two children are Indigenous, but they invited all of us to be a part of the programs. And even my youngest daughter, who is a different background, they were all invited. And it was fantastic to see how, you know, the program. So I have a 6-year-old and we have an 11-year-old, and all of them, there was something there for all of them. And really, I felt welcomed as someone who was trying to learn to navigate and trying to get my children connected with the culture. Like we were welcomed warmly, and we were, sharing of information and feeling comfortable and asking questions and learning, because, you know, this is what it's all about. And my kids have made some really cool crafts as well that they get to keep home, bring home. So it's been really important. And so the friendship centers, like you said, they're located all over. And so are they, if someone's interested in connecting with their local friendship center, can they just go on your website to do that? Do you think that would probably be the best way to try and find it?
So from our website, I guess I could share, can I share my screen on here?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see.
And then I can put the link in the comments too. I'll do that as well.
Perfect.
So let me try and share my screen. So from our main page, and this is just www.ofisc.org, this will be what you see. And in order to locate a friendship center, if you click on friendship centers, it will say find friendships or find a friendship center. And it will bring you to a page. I'm like, is my internet going to kick me out?
That's okay.
It'll bring you to a page that has a map, and you can scroll in if you want to find the closest friendship center you have to you. But also, if you know what region you're in, or if you're looking for specific programs, you can also refine your search by looking for specific programs that you're interested in. And all the friendship centers are here. Some friendship centers, when you click on, say, Toronto Council Fire, which is here in Toronto, it might guide you to their website. So some friendship centers have websites, and they will sometimes have a list of all the programs they have, as well as the staff name responsible for that with their contact information. And so if you're looking for a specific program, then that's a way to do that. And if they don't have all the programs and staff names listed in their contact information, you can usually just contact their reception to be able to get the contact information for the appropriate program that you're looking for.
That's perfect. And I know that even in our case, and I don't know if this is the case for all friendship centers, but we were looking for a specific program that actually wasn't offered by our current friendship center, but there was an event going on. And so that's how, Hamilton, they spoke with the Hamilton and they had invited us to a specific event that my children were really hoping to connect with. So I know that even if it's not in your direct region, sometimes you can still connect with them and say, I know this isn't being offered, but do you know? And so it's through those connections, I think, in the networks that you're able to get that support as well. At least that was in our experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In the friendship centers, we'll often on our website, we'll list the programs that we know that are offered through the O5C and funded through to that flow through to the friendship center. Where friendship centers also work with municipalities, they'll work with the provincial government and federal government to also run programming that they've negotiated on their own. So we might not have all the list of all the programs, and they may have additional programs.
Yeah, but I think we ended up going to one that was specifically for children who live with FASG, and there was like a connection or some program with the local regional police, and they had to do activities together, and my kids absolutely loved it. And they're like best friends with the officers who were there. So it was really positive programming. So we've been asking people this question. Just want to know, how has COVID sort of impacted you guys, specifically with these programmings, and what have been your hopes for post-COVID supports? That's the big question. I mean, you can't not talk about COVID now, right? So
we're really looking forward to never having to ask that question again.
Yes, then we will celebrate.
Yes. So I think friendship centers have adapted really well to being to provide programming and support during COVID. O5C has always advocated that friendship centers are essential services, that they provide food bank for a lot of community members. Sometimes they are the only food bank in the community, that they provide PPE, that they provide support for homelessness, people dealing with addictions, young people who have mental health issues. And so we've always indicated and advocated that friendship centers are essential services. And so oftentimes, even during stay-at-home orders and full-on lockdowns, that friendship centers have remained open, even if it has been one or two staff or rotating in and out of the friendship center to ensure that ongoing programming and support has been provided. A lot of cultural programming has been done online, and as well as youth-based and arts-based programming has been modified to happening on Zoom. I've even participated in traditional moon ceremonies via Zoom, right? And participating with a group in Lake Dryden, and for where I wouldn't always get that opportunity to just be like, hey, I'm gonna go to Dryden this weekend, where now I get that opportunity. So it's been exciting to have that opportunity to engage with friendship centers that aren't necessarily in my region, but also to get the experience of the teachings and the knowledge from those areas. It's been interesting because for so long, a lot of people have said, well, we don't share teachings online, but a lot of conversations have also transitioned to how do we still provide these teachings, talk about the language, do these pieces, because a lot of this is supporting community. And so even though we can't gather, it provides a gathering space. And so I think COVID has shown that we can continue to do teachings and cultural and ceremony through an online space that we never necessarily took into consideration before. We're seeing with a lot of young people's programming, so like those little babies up to youth, is a lot of scavenger hunts, a lot of programming to try and engage youth in alternative ways, because doing homeschooling all day and then having programming at night is not always super fun. So really trying to find engaging ways for programming to happen for young people has been something that's been, I think, difficult at first, but as the programs have continued to provide services, that they've adapted very well. And friendship centers, most of them have either updated their websites or have creative Facebook pages as well. So very easily accessible on Facebook. I know an example is North Bay Friendship Center. Regularly, they'll have their cultural resource coordinator provide a song or a teaching or a drum for all community. And they'll do it every, I believe, Friday, which is really nice. And it's just nice to hear the language and the drum when we haven't had cultural supports in a year and a half, like powwows.
Yeah, I know my children were actually mailed little medicine pouch, like how to make it. And so all the kids logged online and they learned about it. They did a story first and they learned about the history of the medicine pouch and the significance of it. And they actually sat together and made a medicine pouch together. I mean, kids love getting mail anyway, so they thought it was cool to have something in their name. And they actually said they did it over 2 days. And so they thought it was really cool. And it was interesting to see how you guys have adapted, because like you said, no one was expecting this. So I feel that making sure that everyone still has the connections and, making those friendships and, having an opportunity to learn and share has been really helpful, at least from someone who attends, for sure.
And I think our hopes post-COVID is, again, our communities are Indigenous communities are so based in relationships. And I think post-COVID, we're all looking forward to that time where we can participate in ceremony in person. I've recently heard that even they've done longhouse ceremonies this past June in small groups recently out in Six Nations. And so really trying to find ways that we can gather again in small groups. I have an old colleague who's out in Kenora, and they're doing their first powwow, but they all have to show that they're all vaccinated to go to the powwow and to dance. And so but even hearing how excited they are to be able to do that for the first time with other jingle dress dancers or other fancy shawl dancers, right? It's that opportunity to practice ceremony and culture and community in a way that is safe, but is also bringing back our relationships, not just to each other, but also to the land, right? Stay-at-home order, it's been really difficult for everyone to be on the land, to practice those ceremonies. And now that things are starting to open up a little bit more, it's allowing that opportunity for us to discuss, how do we do this? And how do we do it in a good way, in a safe way, and one that allows us to rebuild those relationships and connections?
I know, I feel like we're all slowly getting a glimmer of hope. Slowly we're seeing things happen. So I really hope that you guys we're all able to get back to normal and you can start doing in-person ceremony. Because like you said, it is, from what I've seen, it's all connection and friendship and relationship has been huge. I'm mindful we have 15 minutes, so I'm just going to make sure. This always happens, so don't even worry. So okay, so one of our community parents, I'm going to skip one of the questions to go to this. One of our community parents had asked us, or had shared that they're an interracial adoption, so their child is Métis. Is there any supports or program that so the parent, can be a part of to ensure that they're continuing to support their child's cultural background?
So I think one of the most important things to always remember is that friendship centers are not just for, and you alluded to this as well, friendship centers are not just for Indigenous people. They are open to all community. And when it comes to programming and services, they may say, like, if it's between an Indigenous person and non-Indigenous person, that Indigenous person might get the access first, but it's still opening to everyone in community. And when we talk about the supports, even looking for supports for that young child and trying to support their identity, most oftentimes, even if they're part of Wasanabin or a Guego, that they don't just work with the individual, they work with the family as well. Yeah. Because we know how much interconnection is, right? There's always that self-family, community, and nation, and we're all related to each other. We all connect to each other. And if we're focusing on the young person, that young person is surrounded by family. And so they would, in some capacity, even if they're working with a healing plan or a wellness plan with that young person, then you'll be part of that wellness plan. And that might be inviting you to some programming, or that might be referring yourself to other programs within the Friendship Center to support yourself. And so absolutely, there are programs that, depending on the age of the young person, if they are 6 to 12, I would say Guego might be best. And if they're 13 to 17 or 18, then Wasanabin. And if they're younger than that, then there's like CAPC and CPNP. There's a ton of programming, but there's also healing and wellness, and that looks at the whole family. There's cultural resource coordinator, again, that encompasses programming for everyone within that family. So absolutely, if there isn't one specific programming that you would be able to go to, then they may be able to refer you to other supports and agencies within the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my experience when we were connected. And I know that, veering off here a little bit, but like we talk often, like I do, we talk often about cultural competency, and you want to be culturally competent if you're adopting any child, regardless of the background. And the truth of the matter is like attending a powwow once a year does not make you culturally competent, doesn't ingrain any culture. And last week, Chantal, I believe it was last week, Snack and Chat, we talked about how even like extended family members need to be involved. And so if we're creating a space for children to ask questions and learn and feel accepted and loved, it can't just be drop your kid off to a program and walk away. It has to be ingrained in all of us. And so I call and I go to programming and I ask questions, and I've spoken to elders just so I can learn my place and my place in all of this and my role in all of this, but also having extended family. And so to know that so we've all gone to, well, pre-COVID, we've all gone to events and activities and things together because, like you said, we're all family, and we've never felt like we shouldn't be there. We felt welcomed, and we've asked questions. It was a place for us to all learn and grow, and our kids look around and they see us and they see that we're participating as well. So it's not an us, them, it's all of us together. This is all of our culture now. So I encourage anyone who, especially this family who wrote in with this question, like please connect and make that phone call and share with them, where you're at and what supports that you're looking for and what teachings, because there's research that we need to do as well on our own. And then we can reach out as well to make sure that our kids are connected. I'll get off my soapbox. I just wanted to share that from my experience. Okay, 10 minutes. Okay. So this is actually a really great question. So us at Adult for Life, we were actually a part of a training that you guys had done with us, and it was the learning. I mean, we learned so much just from the 45 minutes with you. So you can imagine the learning that we had done as an organization. So can you tell us a little bit about the various trainings that you guys offer, and if there is an organization or a professional watching, how they can connect with you to learn more about the different types of trainings and offerings you guys provide?
My mute button wasn't working. Absolutely. We, within the O5C, we have a training and learning work group, and much of the training we do is Friendship Center specific and does go to support friendship centers to better support community or to increase their knowledge. However, we do provide some other types of trainings, and I think there's two I might focus on. The first one is our Indigenous cultural competency training, which we've recently been, over the past year, this training has been delivered on Zoom online. However, we haven't done any public sessions, and our public sessions are opportunities for individuals to register for our training. There is a fee. The fee is $200. However, if you are a nonprofit organization and an individual, we may be able to lower the price and discuss those things. But the fee goes towards our ability to maintain our platforms and support community. And our cultural competency is a cycle right now of 4 different trainings. And I believe you would have participated in our cycle 1 trainings, which really looks at that. So at the start of this, I talked very briefly about history, but it goes very much in depth of that history and really talking about what enfranchisement meant, what legislation happened that impacted community, what the Indian Act caused and the issues and the impacts of that. And so really going in depth into those pieces, where our cycle 2 goes a little bit more into current day legislation, talks a little bit more about things like the gender inequality that happened within the Indian Act, and conversations such as Bill C3, Bill C31, and what the impacts of those look like today. Cycle 3 looks more at treaties. It looks more at what is a treaty? How do we discuss treaty relationship? How do we understand that even in an urban center, you're on treaty land? It's all treaty territory. And so how do we acknowledge that, and how do we have that conversation? And our cycle 4 goes more in depth into how do we make that meaningful change. And so when we talk about cultural competency, we always talk about it as this journey, that it's not you take one training and I'm culturally competent, just like you mentioned, I go to a powwow, I'm culturally competent, that it's a journey, and that as Indigenous people, we're still also on that journey, and we're still learning and we're growing. And with each experience, we gain a little bit more to add to our bundle. And so recently we had our first public session back in June, but we're going to be hosting one in September as well. I can send out that information to both of you, our registration information and all that for if anyone's interested in it. Always, you can look at our Facebook page, because we'll update if we're having trainings, when that is, what it looks like, is it open to public, things like that. And so feel free to visit our page, like our page, or Twitter. We also have Twitter. I don't really tweet, so it's not something I often access, but I know a lot of people do. The other training I would highlight is our Gone Away Twin training. And our Gone Away Twin training is the training itself. The name of Gone Away Twin translates to taking care of each other's spirit. And it's a training that focuses on a campaign. And the campaign is to end violence against Indigenous women and girls in Two-Spirit community. And so this campaign goes all the way back to 2008 when it first started. And we will be hosting a training that is open to public, open to anyone. There's no fee for this, but it allows you the opportunity to participate in the training, to talk about how to assess if we're ready to have a violence prevention campaign in our own community. It talks about how do you identify warning signs of a child or a parent who is experiencing abuse, and how do we start to have those conversations. And there's also opportunity in there for community to So say 3 of you are from the same community and you all take the Gone Away Twin training, you can apply for community-based funding from us to implement your own awareness campaign that talks about ending violence, that talks about taking care of each other's spirit. And so that's our other training that I would say it is accessible to individuals. And as I mentioned, we will be hosting a session in September. So I believe the week of September 16th. I can't think off the top of my head. And that we should have that registration ready soon. And I can also send that out to you. And as well, I mentioned that one is free. There's no fee. So it's free to attend. And it is 3 days. And so just be mindful that when you register, it is 3 days. And it's important to attend all the sessions because they really build off each other. Yeah, it's the 14th, 15th, and 16th of September.
Yeah, we'll make sure to share it on our end. And I'm pretty sure as you were speaking, Chantal was posting things in the comments, like your Facebook and your Twitters and your Twitters. All of them, all of your Twitters. And so, yeah, we do encourage you guys to like and share and get connected with the OFIFC, connecting with your local friendship centers as well, because I'm sure they have their own social media pages. Sometimes giving a call and talking to a live person is also really nice. So reaching out, making sure that you have your questions and that, you know, as you had mentioned, different friendship centers have their own events as well. So you can always connect with them. That is it for us. We are wrapping up. We did not get to all of the questions, but we never do. So I'm okay with that. I really appreciate you taking your time and sharing more with us. I learn every single Snack and Chat. I learned so much, but I feel that this is so important for us to know about and to know what programs are actually out there and what supports are actually out there for communities and for all of us to continue connecting. So thank you so much. Chantal, I know that we have a webinar tonight and next week's Snack and Chat. I'm totally going to throw that on you to chat about that as we wrap up.
Yes, you are correct. So tonight we do have a webinar for our community families, Kim Barthel Part 3 of Becoming a Behavioral Detective. There is still time to register if you haven't done so. So that's going on next week. Sherry Caldwell from the Ontario Disability Coalition, the founder, she's going to be here and we're going to talk about advocating for your kids that have disabilities. So you don't want to miss that. I think we're going to learn a lot there too. So if you want to always know what we're up to, the easiest way to do that is to just like and follow our public Facebook page, and that way you won't miss any of our events and learning opportunities. I want to also thank Lorena again for being here, sharing your time, sharing your wisdom, sharing your experience and your voice with us. It is really, really appreciated. I hope we have an opportunity to have you back someday soon, if you're willing.
No, absolutely. This is great.
We always ask live. You always ask live so that you can't say no. It's our little trick. We're sharing all of our tricks, but absolutely, it's so important. And I think that we need to do more. We need to learn more. We need to know what other resources is, and we need to support as a community. We need to support the movement, the Friendship Center movement, and support our local communities in our centers. So
yeah,
make sure.
So, yeah, I was just going to say, so if you're watching or you're watching on replay, the link is there. You can just go, Lorena showed it live, find the Friendship Center that's nearest to you and give them a call or send them an email and connect. So wishing you a great week, everyone. Thanks for watching again and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Bye.